Call to order the City Council regular meeting of the City of Wyoming, Minnesota, November 21st, 2023. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. Tonight, first on our agenda for the Pledge of Allegiance, we have Weeblo PAC number 9142 leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand as they walk in. All right, we'd like to thank the Weeblo's PAC number 9142. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is the open forum. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on items that are either on or not on the current agenda. Items requiring council action may be deferred to staff or boards and commissions for research and future council agendas if appropriate. You will be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask that you conduct yourself in a professional, courteous manner and refrain from the use of profanity. Failure to abide by this policy may result in the loss of your privilege to speak. Do we have anybody here tonight? Please come forward and state your name. What are you looking for?
Our names are Scott and Gloria Norton. Our address is 21547 Volga Street Northeast, Wyoming, Minnesota. In the beginning of July of 2023, we contacted each of you council members by email. Then at the July 18th council meeting, we formally presented our proposal to incorporate a Christian nativity scene in the Railroad Park Development Plan. At that time, some of you expressed and shared the desire to include the nativity scene in the holiday display. But you were concerned that if you did it for us, you may be required to allow others to do the same with their symbols. Our proposal was tabled. The city's legal counsel was charged with reviewing the recent applicable Supreme Court decisions and report back with their recommendation. I was promised to be informed when the legal counsel's findings were received and was told that I would have the opportunity to respond. We have attended several council meetings since then, reviewed meeting agendas, left telephone message, but no mention of this report was heard of or observed by us. 5 months have passed. The city has developed the park and started putting up the holiday displays. We understand that you may consider us a single family with an idea that we have made a preliminary effort to show you that we represent the opinion of many concerned, like-minded adults who consider themselves part of this community in one form or another. At this time, we have 160 petition signatures that we'd like to present to you. Would you like me to give them to you now or after?
Mr. Lunan, can you address, please?
Yeah, certainly. There was opinion provided to the council regarding the request. The recommendation of legal counsel is that such a request, if the city were to install a nativity scene, would be considered a violation of the Establishment Clause because it would be the city establishing one religious choice over another. I understand that you guys have been in contact with some individuals from, I believe it's First Liberty Institute, who are working on a couple of lawsuits where other cities have been sued for this exact reason. And as we analyze this and look at it from a liability standpoint, any establishment of religion, and such as placing a nativity scene on a public site that the city's sponsoring, likely opens the city up to liability in a potential lawsuit. While I understand the First Liberty Institute thinks that there are defenses to those lawsuits, the general recommendation is to not establish any sort of religious emblem, because then we have a requirement to open that up to any religious emblem that would like to come on. You may have heard back in 2010, the city of Belle Plaine ran into an issue where they had put out religious emblems into their veterans cemetery, after which the Church of Satan came in, attempted to put their own emblem on. The city tried to pull back and ended up in a lawsuit, cost the city a ton of money, defending that lawsuit and working through that. And so as we've analyzed this, and the other thing I understand is with regards to legal authority, while the Lemon test was abrogated by the decision, the Kennedy decision with Bremerton School District, that decision and the interpretations still didn't abolish the Establishment Clause. And so it changed a little bit of the analysis of how we look at it and what may be considered. And there the courts were looking at, a football coach, his right to pray after a football game, in which other students were invited to join him in that prayer. And that really was more of a free speech and the ability for him to exercise his right, not so much the school or anyone else establishing a religion. Whereas here, if the council and the city were to put this into place and use the funds, whether they're funds that are donated by other people, nonetheless they're going to be public funds, we would likely be in violation of that Establishment Clause. And at the very least, we would be exposing ourselves to a potential lawsuit. And so for those reasons, I'd recommend that the city not move forward with the proposal, and that's what we had looked at.
Okay. I'm not an attorney, and I don't profess or try to say that I am, but it is my understanding that if the council themselves were to develop your own plan and incorporate a nativity scene, then it would, number one, be defensible in a court of law, and two, there are faith-based nonprofit legal organizations who would help you write that plan, so it would be defensible. And if the case should arise that you have to take it to court, they would also defend you. As being nonprofit, there's no charge.
Yeah, Mr. Lunan, again, do you want to state the position of the city? We're just not, it's, one thing that I will speak as mayor, we are entrusted to the taxpayers. And we are to do the best that we can with taxpayer money. By bringing this forward and opening up the city to a lawsuit, that affects all 8,162 residents that pay taxes here in this city.
Right.
So opening up a lawsuit for the whole entire town or city is not something I'm willing to do. I believe in our council and Mr. Lunan and what he has to say for it. Anybody can put around their house or on their businesses, they can have a nativity. We talked, I have one in my yard. Any of the businesses could do it as well. But as a city entity, that we cannot do that. I'm not in favor of that. I don't know about the rest of the council. They're up to their opinion. I believe in the opinion of our attorney, Mr. Lunan.
I think there's a blessing to put a nativity scene in a public place. And we have the opportunity by the court now.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna stop right there.
Okay.
So you've heard our opinion. We do really appreciate you coming in and talking to us about it. We appreciate that.
Madam Mayor, I will say one more thing, and that's with regards to the nonprofit and the status. That lawsuit it's a lawsuit involving the Arkansas State Capitol. They put up the 10 Commandments. They were sued by the American Humanist Society. The group that I think you had reach out to the city is involved in defending them. That lawsuit is still ongoing through the Arkansas federal courts. And there's really no resolution, and there's been other case law and other determinations regarding that establishment clause. So potentially, when there's a decision issued in that Arkansas case, where a court actually has issued an order, depending on how that issue comes out, there may be something else to look at. But I think right now, a lot of government institutions are watching that case with regards to how the Arkansas federal courts are going to be interpreting that and whether or not the analysis that they're going to be applying will be applicable. It's likely that that case is going to be appealed and continue to go through the system, but ultimately, that's an unresolved issue, even though I understand that the organization that you provided to us is involved in this. So certainly individuals are encouraged to advocate for their beliefs, they're encouraged to put it out there, but as a government, under the First Amendment of the Constitution, we need to be cautious in taking any sort of action that may be interpreted as an establishment of one religion over another. And so that's where my recommendation comes from, because there's not settled law on it right now. The case is ongoing. There's been a lot of motions and litigation, and it's been an expensive lawsuit. And so it really exposes the city to a lot, and it's not my recommendation to put this city in that position to be the Minnesota test case if it were to come to that.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share, and thank you for checking on it.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
I have a question, though. Mr. Loonan, could you send your analysis to the Nortons?
Yes, that's no problem. We did prepare an analysis. It was sent to the entire council, and I wasn't aware. It's certainly public, so I can send that to you. And
I appreciate it.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our agenda is number 2, approval of minutes. Consider approving the minutes of the special meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for November 7th, 2023. Let the record, does anybody have questions or comments?
No.
If not, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by member Schilling. Do we have a second? We have a second by member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 3, consider approving the minutes of the work session of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for November 8th, 2023. Are there any questions or comments? If there are none, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion to approve by member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 4 on the agenda is actually for us to go into a public hearing. I'll read the resolution first, and then Mr. Linwood, did you want to speak on it first, and then we'll go to public hearing?
Yes, Mayor, I think that'd be appropriate. Mr. Erickson will have a presentation to discuss the project with the council.
Okay. All right, so number 4, to consider resolution 2311-109, a resolution approving the assessment roll for the 2023 Fallbrook Avenue 264th Street construction project. And Mr. Erickson, you're going to start us off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. We are here for the assessment hearing, as you noted, for the 2023 Fallbrook Avenue and 264th Street project. Next slide, please. Thank you. The agenda really that I'll quickly go through is really highlighting the public improvement process, our assessment process and policies, the project location, existing conditions, what the improvements consisted of. We'll highlight project costs and funding sources. We'll discuss the assessments and the financing for the project schedule, where we're at in that process. And then we'll open for public comments, and then ultimately, City Council will discuss adopting the assessments. This is really kind of a representation of that public improvement process. By statute, Chapter 429, it's really outlines what's required. Really, the bulk of that is really 2 main public meetings that are required: the improvement hearing, and secondly, the assessment hearing that we're having this evening. We have quite a few more meetings involved with that. In this case, we didn't necessarily have the neighborhood meeting that you typically see. We had individual meetings with staff and business owners along that corridor. And as you can see, we're really at the tail end of that public improvement process. This evening, we're holding that assessment hearing, and the last step would be certifying those assessments to the county after a 30-day period in which property owners or business owners have the opportunity to prepay their assessments. And we'll get into a little bit more of that detail here shortly. I did highlight this just now, but again, that this process does follow Chapter 429 of Minnesota State Statutes. I highlighted that the two public meetings that are required, and again, we go above and beyond that. We find that the more involvement we have, whether it's neighborhoods or businesses, the more successful our projects are. And so we really try to engage, and we've had the opportunity to meet with all of the businesses along this corridor and review the project in advance and during construction. And they've all been quite cooperative during construction as well. There is the opportunity for those property owners to appeal the assessment amount. They need to do that in writing in advance or at this meeting. And so that is part of the notice that goes out to all the property owners, guiding them of the process and what their rights are and what they need to do if they do choose to do that. If we do receive any appeals, which we haven't to date, those must be filed with Chisago County Courts within 30 days of the adoption of the assessment. The interest rate that has been identified for this project, similar to the one we just had a couple weeks ago, is at that 5.25% rate with a term of 10 years. Again, just the project location, Fallbrook Avenue and 264th Street out from 61 all the way south down to Fairview Avenue. The existing conditions, to say that they were poor is an understatement. I know we've all driven them on our road tours and we've rated the roadways. It actually had deteriorated quite rapidly in the final years and really needed to be improved, and we're happy with the results. Next slide. As you're aware, the project really consisted of two parts. One is really a full reconstruction. That's from the southern portion, 260th Street South. It included replacement of all the concrete curb and gutter. And then the northern portion really was a reclamation project. We were able to utilize all the existing material, grind it up with the underlying aggregate, build that strength of that roadway, and really maximize the use of the existing drainage facilities and ditches along the roadway. And so that worked out quite well. The assessed improvements really also include the drainage improvements. So there was some culverts, some minor storm sewer improvements, but for the most part, they were really just expanding, some of the existing facilities and maximizing what we had out there to date. There were some additional improvements that were not assessed, and those were some sanitary sewer deficiencies. We did some televising of the sanitary sewer in advance of the project and identified some sags in that. We wanted to make sure that we corrected those in advance of fixing the roadway. And then we also had some inflow and infiltration prevention at each of our structures. Again, this highlights the two different sections of the roadway. We had the urban section in the lower portion of the screen that included the concrete curb and gutter. That was simply replaced in kind. We didn't expand the urban section. We really replaced it in the location that existed, with one minor exception through an intersection to help drainage. And then the remaining portion of the project remained that rural section. Next slide. So again, you can see highlighting the improvements. This is a before shot, if you will, and then the after shot afterwards. So tremendous improvement there. We're proud of the results. Next slide. Again, the before shot, and again, it just doesn't do it justice. There's an awful lot of sweat equity that gone in there from our public works staff over the years, patching that, holding it together, but it was really quite poor. And here's the after shot. So again, fantastic improvement there. Project costs and funding sources. Boy, I have to get my cheaters on there a little bit. All right. Obviously, I need to improve on the tech size there, but the total project cost is just over $1.1 million. We do have assessments totaling that. Help me, Rob.
It's here too if you need.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, much easier. 188,520, and the city responsibility of that $931,380. And again, some of that city responsibility will come from our sewer fund for the sanitary sewer repairs, and the other portion, if you may recall, we did advance encumber our state aid funds. This is a state aid route, and so we did advance encumber those funds. And so as we move through the process, we're getting reimbursed through advance encumbrance of our state aid allocation. Thank you for that. Again, just to familiarize everybody with our assessment policy, it is 20% assessed of those drainage and surface improvements. And as you may recall, and for the audience, we set that amount because that's the minimum we can assess when we're bonding for improvements, and so we wanted to have that consistency. But that's the minimum that we can assess. And so we've stuck to that policy for a number of years now, and it's been working well for us. The assessment calculation on this project is a little different than what we see in our neighborhood projects. This is based on a front footage basis rather than our per unit basis. And again, beyond those funds that we're collecting with assessments, it is paid for with city funds or city reimbursement from state aid funds. This is the project corridor. All the parcels highlighted in blue are adjacent to the improvements and received assessments. Again, you can see the totals and how we arrived at the assessment per front foot of $30.32 per foot. That is, again, the total assessable cost divided by the total front footage. And that was applied for each parcel. Again, with assessments and financing, we talked about that occurring over a 10-year period at an interest rate of 5.25%. Property owners have the right to pay that assessment in full and avoid assessment if they make that payment within 30 days of the adoption of that assessment, which is slated for this evening. So 30 days from this evening. And then applied directly. Yeah, I wanted to just back up. Do we know the date of that, Rob? And we can certainly follow up with property owners. So it's 30 days from this evening.
It is, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I don't have that date,
So
but it would be
December 21st.
December 21st it is? Okay. If that option is not chosen, it would be certified to the county. It would be applied directly to the property taxes. In subsequent years, property owners do have the right to pay that off in full. It would just, accrue that interest through that calendar year. Next slide. Again, this is where we're at in the project schedule, nearly complete. The assessment hearing this evening, if they is approved this evening, we'll be certifying those assessments to the county in December 21st. There are some minor things that remain with the project. One, temporary driveway that we need to finalize, and restoration, of course. It is starting to come, but late season, late project. We will be doing a bunch of seeding and taking care of that in the spring. And I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
Right. Do we want to open it up first to the public hearing and then do questions after that, should any of them arrive? Okay, so we need a motion to approve to go into the public hearing.
So moved.
We need a second?
Second.
Second by Member Onstead, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now in a public hearing. Mr. Hallberg, did you have anything you want to say? You're the only one out there, so I was taking a shot in the dark.
Yeah, I just have one quick question.
Sure.
What's the difference between the front footage versus unit? Because I'm just curious, like, for example, I don't know how much it would affect it, but if all the southern properties have curb and gutter, but the northern ones don't, and maybe the southern ones should be assessed more than the northern ones, I don't know what's normal or what's standard, and
Yeah.
I'm just curious
So-
on your thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's a good question, and we did look at that and evaluate that, and the costs were not real significant. There's not a real significant difference. Where you see a lot of differences when you end up having a lot of storm sewer and additions like that, and so there's not a significant difference, and we felt the roadway is really utilized by whether it's directional traffic from the north or the south, and they're all utilizing the traffic on the roadway, whether it's traveling south, traveling north. There really is pretty uniform traffic flow throughout, is what we felt. And so we didn't feel like there's a reason to break that up amongst the different types of improvements. But when we talk about units versus front foot, we look at the type of, and it was really stemmed more from a residential type use. When we look at per unit, we look at a residential single-family unit where we have similar uses, right? Yeah, if you have a lot that's 100 feet wide or 120 feet wide and it only supports one residence and it can't be further subdivided, that we feel that is a pretty uniform use for properties from that. And so what we do to look at it, if there's a larger parcel rather than looking at front foot, is we look at the ability for properties to subdivide. And so if it's a larger parcel than a smaller parcel and it can be subdivided into multiple units, then they get assessed not one unit, maybe 2 units. We've had as many as, I think, 8 units. And so that's how we make up for that difference rather than by front foot. In this case, they're fully developed parcels with lots, and so it's really hard to break it into multiple units
They probably
based on
come
their
up with
underlying
pretty
zone.
similar
So it's,
numbers.
the most equitable way in this case is traditionally done by front foot. And so that's how we applied that.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
Great questions, though. Yeah, we discussed those all here at the council level and debated that and discussed that. And so I think you're asking great questions. They're questions that we had ourselves and tried to work through that process.
okay. And then I'm planning on paying for 4 of the parcels up front and then assessing 4 of them.
Okay.
So I'll get paperwork in the mail on how to do that, or?
We certainly can provide follow-up. Just hearing your question on that, perhaps we can just talk about which parcels you want, and maybe, certainly if you just want to stop up and talk to Mr. Linwood, he could certainly share.
Certainly,
and
if you just
provide all
want to
that.
stop up, we can go through the 4 you want to apply it to.
Sure.
And then the other ones, you can just take payment and make sure you're receipted appropriately for those parcels.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Mr. Hallberg, I haven't driven on that road yet. How is it?
It's really nice.
Good.
Yeah, it's a lot better than it was, that's for sure.
That's awesome, I'm sure.
That was
that'll-
not a high hurdle, but it is really nice.
Yeah, well, and I'm gonna say it'll be helpful too in that industrial park if you have any
Yeah.
buildings open and stuff too.
Yeah, now it makes me
it-
look like I gotta do the driveways and all that.
There it is.
So.
It's like a house, right? It just snowballs?
It
Yeah.
makes my parking lots look a lot worse.
Yeah, all right. Well, we appreciate you coming up tonight.
Yes.
All right.
So,
Thank
all
you.
Thank you.
I will say, and that's a very good comment, right? When we see these road improvements, people tend to start
Spruce it up.
working on their own, right, their driveways, and I know it's already happened out there, right? A lot of the tie-in, where we tied in with our concrete, we went out to the right-of-way. But in many instances, we had talked with our contractor, and they were willing to expand the scope of the project, and they worked directly with the business owners to
Yeah.
expand and add that concrete or improve the driveways and things. And so that's kind of a natural progression that we like to see as well, that they take pride in the neighborhood and the business areas and continue to improve them, so that's great.
So we'll have a spiffy industrial park.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing there is nobody else with questions, I need a motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
We have a motion by Member Luker, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Onstead, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Back into regular session, any questions, Member Luker, about the process?
Nope.
Member Onstead?
No questions.
Member Schilling?
I just have a question for Mr. Erickson. So, we did curb and gutter on that south end from 260th South.
Yeah.
And in looking at the details, we still had to, on the north end, we still had to improve the drainage ditch.
Right.
So there's labor, equipment, dirt moving, restoration that needs to be done. In my opinion, I think if you just run a curb line with a machine,
Yeah.
versus swale all this out all the way, make it to what it needs to be, I think, you would know well better than I would, but,
We did look at that. and
it's pretty much the same cost in
pretty
my
much a
mind.
wash, yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, obviously the area that we did the work with the curb and gutter, there was no ditch restoration, and there
Right.
was no ditch undulations that we had to correct and chase out, and, yeah, so there's quite a bit of different work in the other areas that,
Yeah.
that weren't in the southern portion.
Yeah, so that
you're right.
made sense to me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're gonna move on to the consent agenda.
Mayor, we need a
Yeah.
motion to approve that resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Who
So
would like to, who would like to make that second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. All right, now we can go on to the consent agenda. What? No? Okay. Number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Does anybody wish to pull an item from the consent agenda?
Poll number 8, please.
We'll pull number 8. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we need a motion to approve 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Member Onstead. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. We're pulling number 8 to consider resolution 2311-111, a resolution certifying the unpaid utility bills and city service invoices of residents and businesses contained on the attached list to property taxes for collection 2024. Member Yeager, your questions?
Okay. The nearly $102,000, over $102,000, that's a lot for delinquencies. How much of that is sewer and water, and how much of that is storm sewer?
There is a significant more of storm sewer this year, as you see the $30 on there. I think there's approximately 3,500. On storm, I know that on this year too, we also have some outstanding amounts that were for HOAs that had significant billings for water use, and when I say water use, sprinkling. So those have created on there. It is a little higher than we have in years past. I think on average the last 4 years we've been around 75, 80,000. And
Yeah.
then last year was 81,000. So the 102 is up a little bit from previous, but I think, like I said, a few of those anomalies being some of those sprinkling from some of those HOAs and just some of the additional storm waters that have those amounts now with the fees being up on those, you'll see more of those $30 throughout that than previously.
I thought the $30 was like the first year we did this, and it went up from there.
$25 is the minimum, so that's what you're seeing on those. is
Okay.
what we're doing to recover those.
Is there a way to get the people to, encourage the people to pay those stormwater fees?
You know, we send bills, you can receive
Yeah.
late fees if you don't pay the bill in time, and then the ultimate is that it does go on your property taxes. So we do have, since we adopted those stormwater fees, we have an annual column in our quarterly newsletter discussing what those stormwater fees are and how much they are. And I think now we've also offered different ways to pay them. You can pay them through the mail, you can call in and pay those, you can pay them online. You can also come into City Hall. So there's a multitude of ways, and I think we've communicated that, I think, to the best we can. We're hopeful that people always, pay their bills on, but obviously this is our last attempt to try to receive those funds for the
Yeah.
city for our operations.
Totally understand. My concern is that now that we're talking about raising utility rates, if people can afford this.
I think in regards to the affordability, you talked about that tonight and previously in those
Yeah.
rate studies, that there was an affordability content that was here for Wyoming. I think, as I recently said, that there is a bit of an anomaly this year in the rates, and there really isn't any substantial increase from previous years on this. And I said, well, some of the watering bills from the HOAs and the stormwater. So I guess I wouldn't necessarily think in regards to the affordability. Certainly there are people with circumstance in our city that it might be somewhat of a burden, but I think based on the studies that the city council has gone forward with, and we've received those and accepted those, I would say that is something we're certainly considerate of and trying to do our best to make sure that we are.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we will need a motion to approve Resolution 23-11-111. Member Yeager, would you like to make the
Yeah,
motion?
move to approve, please.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. We move on to acknowledge receipts of reports of officers, boards, commissions, and department heads. Number 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Does anybody wish to pull an item from the reports? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward to new business. Number 20, to consider the conditional offer to Derek Heath of the Reserve Cadet Officer position. Chief Bauer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. As you're aware, we posted a volunteer position for a Reserve Cadet Officer approximately a month ago. We received a few applications for it. It was open briefly because we did have internal candidates that were eligible for it. We have selected a potential candidate for the position. Derek Heath is his name. He is a current reserve officer for the department, volunteer, and would be looking to transition into this position. He's a current law enforcement student at Rasmussen University. Is a Wyoming resident, and like I said, has been a volunteer reserve since April of this year. He will finish his schooling towards the end of this year and will be eligible to be an officer in 2024. So we're looking to provide him a conditional offer based on your approval this evening. We are doing a full police officer background check, psychological evaluation, physical, medical evaluation on him. So when he is eligible to become an officer, we will likely have these positions still available. We can fast track him through that process when he is available and just update anything that's happened since today. So we're looking to bring him on as this volunteer position, and the reason bringing it to council is there is that tuition reimbursement component of it, as we have, based on the conditions of the Reserve Cadet Officer Agreement that we've prepared with our legal counsel.
Questions from council? We'll start from Member Schilling.
No questions.
Member Yeager?
The tuition reimbursement will come from the state funds that you received?
Correct, yes, at the end of the year, yes.
Thank you.
All right, Member Onstad
No questions.
and Member Luger.
No questions.
All right, we need a motion to approve the conditional offer to Derek Heath for the Reserve Cadet Officer position.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Onstad. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Luger. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 21, to consider approving ordinance amendment 2023-05, architectural standards. Mr. Webb.
Madam Mayor, council members, the City Council, after adoption of the comprehensive plan, started their ordinance updates, first one being the architectural standards, based on prior applications we've received, try to cut down on differences between the ordinance and what was actually approved. We looked at a number of communities, both local and in the metro area. I also had a couple of architects who had submitted designs to the city, look at the, explain what they thought of our ordinance and compare it to some other ones. Our ordinance is very similar. The current ordinance is very similar to the majority of municipalities. We're very compatible now with the draft with what Chisago City is doing. We also made the formatting a little bit easier. The former ordinance, it was kind of all grouped together, all the zoning districts. Even though all the zoning districts still have the same text, except for the industrial district, the last item number 5. We felt that it'd be easier for someone looking at it, they could just say, okay, this is my district, not ignore the rest of it, not try to do some more figuring on it. Another item that we added, the preliminary meeting with staff, the last ordinance was encouraged, now we're going to require it. I think part of that is also, well, first we got to get them to know that there is a requirement. But the other part is when I meet with people after they've already talked to their architect, they've already talked to their engineer, they've already got a building design in mind before they even come and see that we have architectural standards, saying what they can and can't do. And, so the change for the materials, we're going from 65% of class 1 materials and 35% of class 2 or 3 materials on the front facade. And now we're allowing a mix of those 3 materials, with 65% of the class 1 or 2 and with at least 25% of the class 1. So we're hopeful that this will be more with what probably our industrial district is getting used to. I think problems really haven't been with the other businesses, been the industrial. We have an industrial building, we get a lot of pole barns, and they see those and they think they can do that again. So the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing, and they are recommending approval of the ordinance.
Great, thank you. Member Onstad, any questions?
No questions.
Member Luger, any questions?
No questions.
Member Yeager, any questions?
How do you get a uniform architectural theme in a building when your public facing can be, it has to be class 1 and class 2, but your side and rear or anything that's not public can be a lot less of materials?
Although we spell out a number of class materials, it doesn't, we're not eliminating some materials. We do have some prohibited ones, so like the vinyl siding, some of those. But I think the materials that we are allowing are what's typically used anyway as an exterior material. So
I was just curious when it said, a theme,
Hmm.
it has to all mesh,
Oh.
but when you're using different types of materials,
Right.
front and back, how do you get that to mesh?
Sure. I think in the theme concept, more along the lines of if we had a central downtown and everyone had like this old shop kind of thing or something like
Yeah.
that. I think that would be more of a theme.
Okay, but it's not a theme within the same building, because
No.
I was getting these visions of, looks one way front, and, looks
Sure.
worse than back.
And I understand. I think today's architects probably wouldn't want to have that happen. You know, they still have to make their client happy, but they're also still trying to put out a product that, you know, that they can sell also as a future, you know, here I designed this, and we can do that for you too. So, but again, I think that, you know, the materials are what is commonly used for exterior materials anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Member Schilling.
So yeah, the front of the Christmas tree, the back of the Christmas tree. No, I just had one question, Mr. Weck. Are these numbers, when I was looking back and forth, would this have made any differences in when we looked at Dairy Queen's original proposal?
I think it would have.
Yeah, because I was reading the differences and I think that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it, I don't know if what their original design would still comply with what our new
Right,
ordinance is, but
right.
without doing the math, I wouldn't know,
Yep.
but I think it's very close to what they.
Okay,
would have.
all right, thank you very much.
Right, I don't have a question, I have more of a statement. As the liaison, I just wanna thank you, Mr. Weck, and also the planning commission, you put a lot of time into this, and there was a lot of really great discussion on, the standards and what the city should look like and what kinda fits in. So there was a lot of time, and I'm just really appreciative of taking on what we had suggested and making it better, so appreciate that. So I'll make the motion to approve the ordinance amendment 2023-05 architectural standards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's passed. Number 22, to consider resolution 23-11-111, a resolution approving the summary publication for the ordinance amendment 2023-05 architectural standards. Did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Weck?
Just, this is gonna save the city money instead of publishing the whole ordinance, so
Yeah. Okay.
that's the purpose of it.
Any questions? I think it's all pretty. Okay, so we need a motion to approve resolution 23-11-117, summary publication for the ordinance. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by member Onstad. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Quick question, Mr. Linwood, do we want to do 25 first and then 24?
Actually,
We have another
You
one.
wanna do 23
Yep,
first?
we did have the
Oh, we have to do
addition,
23, right.
Mayor, yes.
Yep, and then we
So
want it,
we would go next to Mr. Erickson's, the resolution ordering preparation of feasibility, and then
And
number
then the-
24 for the
Close
addition of the, no, for the addition to the Midco.
Yeah, there
No,
was
you'll do 25 and then 24. You're gonna switch the numbers.
yeah. On our agenda, we have 25, resolution 23-11-119, and 24 to consider entering a closed door session.
I'm sorry, we have the
Yeah.
feasibility study, I'm sorry, for the 2024 street project?
Wait, that's 23.
That's 23.
Yes. So we-
24 is the closed
Yes,
session,
correct.
25 is
Correct,
the,
yes, I'm sorry, looking at the old agenda here too.
Just switch.
Yes, please.
Perfect,
I
okay,
apologize.
so number 23, to consider resolution 23-11-118, a resolution ordering preparations of a feasibility report for public improvements for the 2024 street improvement project. Mr. Erickson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You have a lot tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
members of the council. This is a topic that we've discussed at numerous work sessions, maybe not the focal point, but as part of the budgeting process, we've discussed our roadways, we've had road tours, we've discussed this at length for many years, and I think we should all be quite proud of the progress that we've made. We're still aware that there's a long list of roadways that need improvement. We've talked a little bit about this project in particular, and some of the challenges with respect to the pace at which we've been trying to accomplish these improvements. And so there is a little bit of a funding question, but at the most recent work session, the council gave direction at least to come back to city council with the authorization to prepare the feasibility study and really start that public improvement process. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to move forward with it. I think we wanted to at least get far enough along so that if we do get funding for the public safety facility, and we're in a position to potentially bond for improvements or things of that nature, that we can quickly act on this and have all of that process out of the way and kind of be ready to go, almost have a shovel-ready project, if you will. And so just wanted to again, highlight this area. This is an area that consists of 258th Street from Goodview Avenue to Goodwin Road, Goodwin Lane, 255th Street, Gramford Avenue, and Granada Avenue. Again, just kind of highlighted in my memo the terminus and the beginning and the terminus points of that. And so staff is this evening requesting authorization to proceed with preparation of that feasibility study. That will include some survey, some soil borings, and then we'll start communicating with the public as well, just notifying them that we've been authorized to prepare a feasibility study, and that we'll engage them with our normal public process with neighborhood meetings and things of that nature. We'll likely get some of that survey completed so that we really have an understanding of the project area and a scope before we do that, but we'll eventually have a meeting with them and get feedback from them as far as what concerns they see in the project corridor before we finalize that feasibility study.
Questions from council? We'll start with Member Schilling.
No questions.
Member Yeager?
No questions.
Member Luger?
No questions.
Member Onstad?
No questions.
I have one for Mr. Lunan. This is a part of my street where I live. Do I have to abstain?
Not for this type of vote, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we need a motion to approve the 2311-118, a resolution ordering preparation for the feasibility report for public improvement for the 2024 street improvement project. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Member Luker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Okay, so we are going to actually go to number 25 on our agenda to consider resolution 2311-119, a resolution approving a letter of support towards a deed grant and a City of Wyoming contribution of $5,000 towards a mid-continent fiber project. Mr. Linwood?
Thank you, Mayor Iverson, council members. This is an addition to our agenda, and I apologize being added last, but there was some timeliness required by Mid-Continent in regards to their application for the deed portion of this project for the grant. As you know, the Chisago County Board of Commissioners allocated approximately $2 million of their, not 200, $2 million of their ARPA allocation for broadband internet access to cities, townships. Within Chisago County, we have utilized some of these funds on a previous project. You remember earlier this year, back in May or June, for a project along County Highway 8. We have been continuing to work with Mid-Continent to identify projects in that Wyoming area that may be eligible for that grant, and Mid-Continent had found some projects within Wyoming, Stacy, and the Chisago area, as you can see on the attached map. They have worked with the Department of Economic Development and Employment grant on that, along with Chisago County. They were able to share with me that they just had approved their ask from Chisago County of $45,000 towards this project. The deed request will be approximately $128,000. Mid-Continent will be entering $78,500 into the project, and then they would ask the City of Wyoming to support to provide a letter of support is attached within the document stack here, as well as $5,000 towards the project that would essentially benefit 26 properties in the northern portion of the City of Wyoming off of County Road 30 that are underserved certainly by fiber, and one of the remaining areas that really within the city that is an area of need. So we wanted to bring this to you. Like I said, there is some timeliness with the application for the grant. The only caveat that is identified within the staff report and in that resolution that we would approve this contingent on Mid-Continent receiving that funding from deed so the project can go forward. So that would be the only piece that we would add. Now, like I said, that is entered within the resolution to make sure that we want to see a project here before we're actually utilizing our own city funds or the staff recommendation of using the city's ARPA dollars towards this project. And I can stand for any questions.
All right. Member Schilling, questions?
I don't have any questions, no.
Member Onstad?
No questions.
Member Luger?
No questions.
And Member Yeager?
So this is a second project?
Correct,
When you
yes.
open.
Yes, and I think as you heard, the county is ending at the close of the year here, won't be providing any more dollars towards these projects. So we were, I'm hoping, like I said, to add this in and make sure that they have the ability of Mid-Continent to get this into deed. We think it's a good use of the funds and a relatively extremely inexpensive cost to the city to try to provide that fiber in the areas of the city that right now don't necessarily have great service.
And it would come from our ARPA funds?
Correct, that would be the recommendation.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have a question. I'm just gonna say I think this is a great thing. We deserve it to our residents to make sure they have broadband or internet connection. So with that, I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 23-11-119, a resolution approving a letter of support towards the deed grant and the City of Wyoming contribution of $5,000 towards a mid-continent fiber project. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Onstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Before we go into closed door session, let's do our council reports. Let's start with, member Luger.
I attended the last work session. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Member Onstad?
I attended, let me make sure I got the right meeting. I attended the joint council, the water and sewer.
Oh, the joint,
I was
yeah,
as a public
Chisago Joint Sewer
member,
Commission.
and the work session just prior to this meeting.
Did we have PAC yet?
No, we had that.
That was before this meeting?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
Got it. All right, member Schilling.
I have no report.
Member Yeager.
Well, I attended the budget work session, and I attended the work session before this meeting, and I'd like to wish you all that's watching a happy and blessed Thanksgiving with those you love.
All right, and I also attended the Chisago Joint Sewer Committee, and the work sessions, but what I really would like to state is November 9th on Veterans Day, we were actually able to have just a really brief program for the veterans. It really wasn't a program, but just kind of thanking our veterans. And during that time, just before we actually started the program, 2 eagles actually flew over the project and landed in trees. So I felt like that was a very good omen, and it was very super cool. We didn't get that on camera, but yet it was super cool to see that fly over. So great support from those eagles to have that project done. So with that, Chief Bauer, again, Saturday is, no, tomorrow is Stuff the Truck. Whatever we want to call it, you were gonna stuff it. And you'll be at Bruce's?
Yes, from 3 to 7 p.m.
3 to 7 p.m. So we want to make sure we get, what would be a great goal for poundage of food?
If we could hit 1,700 pounds would be
Oh.
amazing, but
Okay, how many turkeys is that at 20 a pound? It's a lot, okay. So, go ahead.
What about sack of potatoes? Do they have a pallet over there we can donate?
big cans of things.
Yep.
Big cans, all
Okay.
right, so we look forward to that. Santa is also coming up, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, along with our tree lighting. Go ahead, Mr. Linwood, if you wanna.
I think they'll continue, the Wyoming Fire Department will continue to work with Chisago County Anonymous Santa for collection efforts on that Saturday. I don't Chief Bauer, anything else on that I'm missing?
That's it.
Okay.
Go around, they'll be out hitting their sirens and lights and.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, somebody in this room might be in a Santa suit.
Okay. And some people may be on Facebook Live trying to get all you guys going down the road, catching up with you.
And will the
So.
same person in the Santa suit be in the Santa suit at the tree lighting ceremony?
Santa's always in the same
Yeah,
suit.
we do have a,
Santa,
we
wait,
will have a Santa and a Miss Claus at the tree lighting, but I think those will be different individuals. They'll be present at our tree lighting, so.
However, for all the kids that do watch this, Santa is always in the same suit. Yes, okay. And let me just say the tree lighting, we do have some really cool people, vendors helping out, so can we give them?
Yeah, we'll
off the
have,
top of your head?
yeah, we've had some generous donations this year as always, but we'll have the Lindstrom Cloggers, we'll have the Dance Factory, Mr. McFarland, anyone else that I'm forgetting. I think for entertainment, and then we'll have Sunrise Apple Farm, I believe, they've committed to it once again.
The Lions.
The Wyoming Lions are gonna help this year. They're gonna
Polaris.
have, Polaris is donated, and then we will have, Coffee Smith and Forest Lake providing hot chocolate for the event.
Fun, and Lions, I think, are providing cookies.
Cookies and candies and candy
candy
canes and different things, yes.
It's a great city event, so thanks for putting that all together, appreciate that.
Mr. McFarland worked on
Yeah,
that
appreciate
diligently.
that. So, all right, so with that, we don't have anybody in the audience, but we can just take a break for 5 minutes while other people need to leave. So we're doing that at 7:50.